creatives on this table, and pretty sure everyone enjoys music, arts. So what shift needs to happen in the Kenyan entertainment industry in order to make it global?
I think we need to ask what needs to be brought back. Because there was even a point in Kenyan history, or even East African history, where music was almost to the point where it was an international anthem coming from these areas. If you look at the songs Jambo, Jambo, Bwana, songs like that were heard all the way in Chile and said, oh, that's a very Kenyan, oh, that's a unique sound. But then you can place it to the region. And I think what also needs to be brought back specifically is the arts into schools, into curriculum. This creative curriculums where we allow for that expression. I mean, we are naturally a nation of
We're slaves to it already.
no, well, of craft makers. You know, look how we used to communicate as Africans through the drum. Dance was celebration and tears and crying. You know, when we lose somebody, we still danced and celebrated the life of that individual. So I don't think nothing needs to change. It's just that we need to sort of look back at what we once had, what we once celebrated. But only I think even when you look at some of the history in the music, how history or music or artists past influenced your sound. You can go back to the 60s and the 70s and hear some of the most richest sounds. So yeah, I don't think there's much that needs to change. It needs to be brought back, and there's a process that worked, but still embracing the changes in the technology and social media.
Porgy? You're passionate with music. I know you have something to say.
Yeah, man. I have so many things to say about music. But if I was to pick one thing that could change the industry, I'd say like there's a missing element, right, in the entire structure, right? And unfortunately, it's the element at the top, which is the most important element. It's what keeps the machine going. Whenever you think of music or successful musicians or music that has been able to cross over, it's because of the system that it's in, right? So like Beyonce is a good artist because she wakes up and her work is to perform, and somebody makes sure she gets a check for when she wakes up to go and think, and she has her everybody who just like there's a system, and the people who facilitate it, who are the guys, we call them the guys at the top, are the people who put in the money because they understand the business of it, and so when it comes back, then they feed a structure. In a place like here, and I don't think it's because of being a developer market or anything, but the music is run by the artist, right? So every artist wakes up, I write my song, I go to the studio, I pay for my studio time, I call Miss Mandy, I go to the station, I take out my song, then I go to the, like, I'm in charge of making the music, taking my music to the people, doing all that stuff. So you end up like, by the time you're done, then it becomes big, you get a show, you make 100 G's, you have to now start paying people. Like the structure is not built to create a successful music industry. Like no matter how big we go, the system, like nobody will ever pay you $1 million. You know what I'm saying? You'll never make $1 million here. There's no show you'll do. You'll probably do 50 for Safaricom, but they'll make sure you can't do a show with anybody else. So it's like we are working in a lose-lose situation. It's like we're playing on a field with no goalposts. So like you can kick the ball around all you want, you'll be the fastest or the strongest, but nobody's scoring a point. You're not going anywhere. So until we're able to have that structure, or that person who comes and says, it's an investment. It's the Richard Branson who come and open Virgin and build a whole bunch of 10 dope artists, who then there's a proper distribution, there's the proper sound. Because some of the reasons our music doesn't cross over is nothing like big. It's just like it's bad. It sounds bad. It's not mastered properly. So a Nigerian song or a South African song will play everywhere because it just sounds like good quality. Like it will work for the Kenyan radio station because we have to play 60% local, so I'll play whatever you bring. But when it goes out there, someone's like, dude, I could hear the crack on that song. You know, like just forget about that thing. So those things will be improved, but it's not a problem that can be fixed by anybody who already exists in the system. So it's like it needs an injection of another person's superpower. If you guys give me some time, if you're looking to marry somebody because of their potential, and like 10 years, I might be that guy.
I'm that
Come and
guy,
change.
so-
Yeah, but you can marry me now. Let's
Homosexual.
work on this potential. No, but yeah, I think for me, I think that's what needs to change. Other than that, like we have good artists, we have everything, but you know, you have avenues, you have blankets, you have all these things happening. But there needs to be that bigger thing that happens for us to be able to play on that field.
So you don't think it has anything to do with the Kenyan sound?
No, there's nothing like a sound. It's not like the Nigerians sat down and they're like, now from today, our sound is. No, it's, if you make something good, it'll become a sound.
It
becomes a sound.
Well, I just wanted to ask, actually this is for everyone, it's a question. Do you think that lack of structure around the industry and just, you know, the stress, you know, that artists, you know, have to deal with in order to get their music out there and to become this entertainer, do you think that diffuses the passion that artists to then make it and have successful platforms? Do you think it diffuses their passion to then be ambassadors or champions of the Kenyan entertainment industry? Because when people make it, ideally they would then say it's because of the Kenyan entertainment industry that I've gotten to where I've gotten. But if they feel like they've carried their journey on their back, you know, by themselves, are they less willing to then shine a spotlight on that industry? That's actually a
I
question.
think it's almost because it doesn't exist. Like there's nothing to shine a spotlight on. There's no industry that helped you. So here, if a guy, we can say names, right? Like if someone like Nameless now, who's been an artist since when Kenyan music started, 15 years or so, if we considered him successful because he has a hot wife, he has like a beamer, he's living, but he's not a big artist. Like in terms of an entertainer, he's not living like an entertainer. He's living like a successful guy, but it's because he has a name and he's thinking. But like the music industry, as much as it's how we know him, I'm sure he still wakes up and like goes to do some deals of like the land somewhere. You know, like he's in Kitengela trying to sell off like a
multiple
beef.
things
You know,
going.
yeah,
It's
to
not
keep
just
it
living
still
off
going
the
because
right.
you need something to fund that look. And like that's where the thing, even with a passion, like passion is a good thing, and that's the problem with the artist running the industry, because a lot of artists make music and I love it, it's so good, I want to share my songs, I want to talk about my story. It's good for the artist, it's good for the music. That shit doesn't make money. The money is made from the guy who sees beyond the passion, beyond the I have a dream. It's like, cool, make sure your dream is here at 6 in the morning,
Exactly.
ready to record, drink hot water, not a mimosa. Like that structure, there's none, you know.
But also, I mean, just to sort of stray away from music, we can look at the arts, we can look at theatre. We have I don't know how many actors have come out of this country. We have Lupita. That is the ambassador that we can call on today. But what is Lupita going to do post all her success? We have theaters that are they're run down. What's that word? They are dilapidated. We have one or two that are still being funded by a shoestring budget, the Phoenix Theatre. Luckily enough, we've got a governor who has just come up and decided to create an amphitheater, which is a multiple-use space, and in Machakos. But when we look at something like Lupita, going back to your question, what is it that she has now strategized to do to even give back to this nation?
And does she feel indebted?
Exactly.
Well, that's the
Does
thing.
she feel her
Well, I
responsibility?
mean,
Yeah, is
and that's not for me to answer. It's now-
she's
it's her
indebted to
action.
Yale.
She's in, yes.
Yeah,
And-
who taught her?
And in fact, I feel like by using Lupita as an example, it affirms exactly what Podri is saying.
Yes.
Right? The reason why she's able to be in the place that she is, in addition to her extreme talent and hard work, is because the system works. So it is required of Lupita only to turn up
Yes.
and
And do
work,
that thing.
right?
Yes.
And so it's not even her job finding auditions. Like she has a person. Like this is my job. I'll
Yes.
find
Yes, as an
a
agent.
bajillion,
Yes.
as many auditions as we
working
can,
for it.
God willing. Your work is to be the best version of an actress as is possible. And when she's the best version of the actress, and then you have the best directors who are filming this thing, then you have a system, you know, and we need to sell this movie to make the 100 million it cost us, and the system is working for us. And what does that? So we need to market these people. We need to build stories around each individual, you know, because it was during this process, I think, for 12 years a slave, and just watching, for me it was like a case study in successful storytelling. When you make the artist, the actor, the actress, when you make them a focal point for a campaign, because we were so wrapped up in Lupita, because she's ours, we forgot, a lot of us, to like look for the other ones, look for every other person who was playing a big role in that movie. The machine was working for them. In the same way we saw it working for Lupita, we were just more aware of what was being done in and around Lupita because we felt a personal connection. But the machine was working for all of them. All of them were having, you know, those interviews and being in those places and having those conversations and having that elevated. The system that worked there for her is Hollywood,
Yes.
right? So then now she comes here. And then what?
And then what?
What would you want
There's
her
no
to
system.
do? Right?
That's the thing.
She
So-
can't invest in the talent.
But there is
hub,
room
she
for
can't do-
advocacy.
And so
still.
now here's the thing. There's two things. Yesterday I was on this panel with one of the with Sakaja, the head of the TNA chairman, and he's also like the head of the Young MP Politician Caucus. Sakaja is a friend for a long time, and so I was there giving him grief, and I'm like, oh Sakaja, how could you punk us? Like, you know, of course, that's what we do. When we see government, we complain. Sakadra's like, forget you guys. You know, when we're passing the media law, I moved a motion in Parliament to enshrine that 45% of local content, because when Tudru was former minister Tudru was in power, he had said, he had made a suggestion, they had brought this idea that 60% of content on all media should be local. But it was not enforceable, it was not gazetted, so it's a law that is not a law, right?
Yes.
So now Sakadra moved this motion and said 45% of all content has to be local content. It was among the things that they were back and forth on the media bill. The Media Council, Media Owners Association went and they were like, forget that, took that clause out, because for them it's like, if we have to do 45% local content, it means we have to buy content or we have to commission content to be made. Us as a business people, for us content is incidental, our real business is selling advertising.
Yes.
So it's cheaper to get a Filipino movie than to give a Kina Miss Mandy money for their branch series.
Yes.
So they took that clause out. The thing is, none of us in the entertainment industry even knew that Sakadra had moved this motion. So none of us made any noise, none of us compelled them. And he said to me, nobody from the entertainment industry lobbies with us. Nobody. I was the only one in Parliament who was talking about that. I had no support from the industry. None of you were lobbying your governors and your MPs. So the bill was that thing clause, it was taken out, and that's that.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that part of the problem is on us. Right? Because talking to him yesterday, the thing that I left the table with is, if we want things to happen, we do have some people on the inside who are aligned to us, but we're only going to be a priority when we take ourselves to the table to be a priority. When they were having the VAT bill, when it was being discussed and there was all these arguments and different sectors came to lobby to have the VAT Act amended or regulated in certain ways, he said not one person from the film industry, not one, went to ask for cameras and film equipment to be zero rated. And so for them it's like, this makes no sense. If your cameras are still as expensive as they are, and when we slap VAT on them, so even when we give out this fund, because there's a fund in the youth fund, there's 600 million that's been set aside in principle, it's not yet actually begun. 300 million is going to go to film, 300 million is going to go to music. 300 million of film is mostly grants, right? So a lot of that money is not going to be money that the government is expecting back. They're trying to put in a cash injection. But it's like, dude, I'm going to give you a loan of 3 million, which you're just going to spend on buying a camera. There's nothing we've done, like we haven't made a movie yet. Like me, I thought I'm giving you 3 million so we shoot a movie. If 3 million is buying you a camera, it makes no sense. So I think from that conversation, I felt there was a bit of a slap in the face moment for, you know, we're arguing, we're saying that government is you know, some of the structures, but we're just not taking ourselves to the table. It's just not happening. And it's been a thought, because so yesterday I put him to task. I was like, why hasn't our money come out? Why hasn't 600 million come out? He's like, why haven't you told me it's not come out? I said, why don't you know this is like, because it's different. Us guys are members of parliament. We can fight and bring these things and make noise about it. So we have to ask the cabinet secretary why 600 million hasn't come out, because there's no oversight committee, or what's the legislation that needs to happen for the money to come out. But he made it crystal clear. It's like, if you don't make it an issue, my guy, there are other issues in this country that we are dealing with, right? And that for me was such a big, it's such a big eureka moment. It's like, okay, some few people, right? And I'm hoping there'll be the Podgies and etc. There's going to be need for like some few industrialists, some few entrepreneurs whose end game, they're like, this talent is convertible into money in the bank. Okay, so that's what's going to happen here. We're going to raise some private investment to make that happen, to create systems. But we're also going to push government, because like government loans, those are the cheapest loans that you can get, right? Already from the youth fund, we could go and get like a bunch of money when Uwezo comes out, if there were entrepreneurs in the creative business who could go and get the loans, and the interest, like the Uwezo fund, when it eventually starts coming out, they said in another 3 months, it's a 0 interest loan. You get the loan, 25% of the loan is grant, 75% is to be paid back, but it's 0 interest. So granted, it's only 20 million per constituency, so maybe you get like 500 Gs, but that's a really great place to start from if you consider what we've been able to do and starting at 0. Like nobody gave us a dime to start. So, you know, the structure has got to happen, but the structure is not going to happen like, it's not some alien thing that's going to happen. It's going to have to be people in and around this business who are going to innovate and be like, okay, enough. We're now making a business of this idea, and we're investing our time and effort and finding the funding to make some structures that work.
Which I believe what he said is true. We don't even have a system, and we're here trying to vouch for.
No, but no, actually, there's some things that I just have to look back. Like I've been in this for a whole year, and we've been working on the distribution system, specifically for music, because that's a big problem. The system works, except for the artist, right? Everybody gets paid in the system but the artist, right? Music is moving in this country. Guys are getting those things, but it's bypassing the artist. So the issue is, how do you get the artist, the creator of that content, I'm talking about music specifically, to get part of that paycheck? Because if you look at how it's moving, the pirates are eating money, they're building houses, the radio stations are getting money, so everybody's getting, but so it's not the system is not working, the system is working as is, right? But the artist needs to get a bit of that. So the issue is, how do you get the artist to get part of that, you know, get money through that? So we've been working on a distribution system to make that. Now you also talk about lobbying organizations. There have been organizations set up from day one to support artists and to all those guys. But you must ask yourself, why have they stopped, and why they're not doing what they need to do? It's not about starting another association. There are too many associations. So that question needs to be addressed. Why is MCSK still on 2012 paying guys their royalties? It makes no sense.
But you know what?
Right?
I'll have to say this. It's not only MCSK's fault. There's a lot of media companies that are choosing not to pay.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. But you see, I'm saying it's not forming another organization, right?
Okay.
Because it's like that MP who goes to parliament. That guy wants to be in parliament, and then he goes in parliament. He becomes like the system. So it becomes what is wrong about it. It's not your passion. It's not like this is wrong. And then Poji 10 years later, he's back to one of them. You're like, it's a system. To understand what is wrong with that. What we say, music is a distribution thing to make the artist get paid. So that's what I'm focusing on. How do you get the artist to get paid? Right. So from that angle, it's interesting.
So we've all agreed the problem starts with the music system as a whole, not so much the artists.
Yeah.
The artists are hungry.
No, because the content is there. That's a beautiful thing. The content is there.
Yeah.
Some people are saying like it's a different sound. It's not that. Guys are consuming this shit crazy, man. But the people who are getting paid, and it goes back to what you says. If I'm an artist, and the guys who truly want to be artists, that's all I do. I have no interest in marketing. I have no interest in doing the blankets. I have no interest in that. So that guy is vulnerable. Somebody who sees the money, which a lot of guys have seen, he says, this guy just wants 10 G's, and give him 10 G's. And guys building houses, man. It makes no sense. So the system is working, but what about the rights for the artist? What about the rights for the creator? Which is a bigger thing. What are the rights for the creators? It doesn't even have to be about cameras. Because if we talk about even Twitter and social media, it's the phone's the next thing. We all got phones, so we don't need to import shit. The thing is, now once we create this film on our phone, what's the next level? How do I distribute that to make money?
A gatekeeper asks you to justify. An artist cannot justify. By the time they have created the body of work and presented it, it is self-justified. That's the end of that's their part in the equation. It's like if you just, the food chain, you know, like, it's not the work of beans to end up being like in a salad. Beans grow. I've grown. I'm a bean. I have finished my purpose on earth. I am now a bean in nature. You, who's like taking it, right? It's the chef's work to be like, if I put this bean and put some pepper, it's somebody else to transform this into something, and that's really been lacking.